Welcome to Deucecast Extra. As promised, we are back on a Tuesday night live and in color. We're not taking a break. Yeah, sure, there's no show that we're covering right now or whatever, but I think what I decided to do each week after we go around the horn and do our extras, I'm just going to have like a pop culture related question for the roundtable to answer. Just to sort of like, just, you know, think about in depth what your thoughts are for these pop culture questions I'm going to ask. And just do one a week. I don't want to be here like an hour. These are just going to be like 30-minute like quick hit episodes, 30, 45, just depends. It's look, some weeks Garrison might not be here, some weeks Roth, some weeks Espo. I mean, look, we are in the midst of American football season starting this weekend. So it's going to be a busy time of the year.
Yeah,
So
I've
we'll
been
see
in
how this
American
goes.
football season.
Yeah,
I've
you have.
been
Yeah, you have.
in American.
But we're just going to go in order as we usually do. And on the screen for me, the order is going to be Espo. So, Espo, I'm guessing I know how you extra'd this week, but you can go ahead and spell it out
Well,
for us Americans.
the lowly people of Ipswich Town in the United Kingdom were
Yes.
trounced by the
Oh,
Liverpudlians.
now wait a minute. I watched every second of that game because I too am a Liverpool fan, and they struggled the first half.
Yeah, the first half was pretty bad, but
Yeah.
we used to have to jump through hoops to watch Premier League football.
I know.
Now
Yeah.
it's been made super easy with
Yep.
NBC and Peacock. So
Mhm.
I'm all in. Waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, even though I'm working like second shift last week. And then one of my coworkers is an Everton fan. Like he had his phone up, and I was like, Everton, and there these. The other weird thing about the UK is that the stadiums in Liverpool, the Everton Stadium and Anfield, where Liverpool play, is less than a mile apart. So it's entirely possible. It's really
Crazy.
weird. It's really crazy. But anyway, I'm all into Premier League. The folks in Brighton are in first place right now. I know you guys don't know where that is, or Nottingham Forest, or where does Fulham play? Who
Wait,
knows?
Nottingham Forest, isn't that like Robin Hood's hometown?
Yes, yeah, you can support the Robin Hoods of Nottingham Forest. Uh,
Nottingham Forest.
it's like that Family Guy meme where Tiddlywinks versus this
So
crazy dames.
I would look. We're going to treat this as an education for the viewer,
Mm.
and even maybe Roth and Garrison here.
Yeah, wait,
Um,
communism?
what? Explain. First of all, how many teams are in the EPL?
So there's 20 teams,
Yeah.
and if you've seen shows like Wrexham or Sunderland Till I Die, these teams are
Or
fighting,
Ted Lasso,
or the Ted Lasso, like the
but that's
fictional.
fiction. But yeah,
So there's 20 teams, and in each league there are 20 teams, and the top 3 teams are promoted into the next league, but the bottom 3 are relegated.
yeah,
And that's the system. I love it. I love it. It just creates
right.
competition.
Meritocracy, baby.
That's right. We don't need this equality stuff. We're just gonna like kick people out of the league because you
I
don't
love
deserve
it.
to be here. Yeah. So it's truly it's of sport, it's the most fair way I think sport can be played. So,
Well, I mean, other than the VAR, yes, I would agree that it's pretty
yep.
fair. The
So
VAR cheats people sometimes. I don't like computers in sports. Like, I don't like computers telling me if
mm,
something happened or not.
if the ball went through the uprights or whatever.
Yeah,
So
baseball has that now too, and
yep.
it's like you can challenge stuff. Just get rid of computers. I just
Yep.
don't like that.
Oh,
Um,
Garrison,
Sorry, I
Garson's
understand
falling
the
asleep
superior
talking about
sport.
it's a superior sport. It's
Steve
just
Spurrier.
different. It's a
Oh,
different look. I love watching. I'm gonna just blaspheme and say soccer. I
yeah,
like watching soccer.
That's
It's
calling
totally
it by
fine.
its proper name.
calling it by its proper name. No, a
Yeah,
Brit would not
Association
like that.
football.
More of in
Soccer.
our society.
I
Yeah.
love
Anyway,
watching a good football club.
that was me.
Um,
I
it
sometimes
was
will go down to our
interesting.
local pub and go watch it as well. So,
I've only really been watching soccer probably like 4 or 5 years at the most. Really have gotten into Liverpool the last 3 seasons. This was the first time that I had recognized like a team that had been promoted. like Ipswich. I'm like, how long has it been since they've been in the EPL? Like, it's so good for them for making it, but yeah, they did get beat, and they probably will. So it'll be a struggle for them to stay in the league. That's what's interesting to me. They get in the league for one season, and then they could immediately go back down. They could immediately get relegated if they're not successful. It's not like you're getting to be in the league automatically for 2 or 3 seasons. You can bounce back and forth, I guess, a lot. I mean,
Yep. So that's definitely you've got to be in. You got to have, it's not easy to watch the matches. They're early in the morning. There are a lot of international players. It's just I love secret worlds where not a lot of people know about the thing that I'm looking at. So it ticks a lot of boxes for me.
Look, you tickled my interest when you said you go to the pub to watch the games. Now that sounds like a good time, especially because the games are on at like 8 a.m. So
right. Start drinking a Guinness at like 9.
You can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
That's right.
Garrison, how did you extra this week?
Just real quick, the closest I've ever gotten to Premier League was when I was 13, 14-ish. I made a friend with a British guy. When we were online, we would play Minecraft. We would play Minecraft together.
Okay.
Way back in the day.
Yeah.
And, he was a big Manchester United fan.
Cool.
So I knew that. That's all.
Boo, Man U. No.
I think he hated Arsenal. I don't know. Just I was like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about, but let's play Minecraft.
It's interesting. I mean, obviously that is the UK's sport. That's their number one sport. That, I guess, cricket probably. But I mean, if you are, they had like soap operas and like drama shows about football clubs over there, like fictionalized, like narrative stuff. And there used to be this show, I think it was about Arsenal or something, about the wives of the Arsenal players or something like that.
Oh, I need to see this. That sounds.
It was like back in the early 2000s. I can't remember if it was actually Arsenal, but it was sort of like footballers' wives, that type of thing. But it was a narrative. It wasn't a documentary or whatever. I just thought that it's interesting that I guess Ballers was kind of like that here, because wasn't that like around the NFL or was that basketball?
I think it was NFL, but I definitely didn't watch the show.
I actually heard it was a good show. I didn't watch it, but
The Rock was it had to be football, right?
I think JDW's in it too as a football player.
Okay.
John David Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. She actually played some football.
Yeah, it is football. I'm pretty sure
that makes sense. Yeah. Well, cool.
My extra.
Yes. Sorry, you're extra. Yes.
You're good. There's a bunch of different things I could choose. I was trying to think. I didn't really prepare for this. I guess I should be thinking about these things throughout the week, but we just get to this and I'm always like, yeah, what did I do?
How did I spend my time?
On Saturday, I watched a movie that I've heard Mikey talk a lot about on the Deucecast.
Okay.
State and Maine.
Yes.
Which I quite enjoyed. It's a very different movie.
Yeah.
Directed and written by David Mamet. You can feel kind of the stage play-ness of it.
Right.
It's set in this small town where they're moving their movie production in after they've had to leave another town due to a scandal. Alec Baldwin doesn't play a very good person.
No, he does not. And this came out like 2000, right? I think it was like the year 2000. Yes.
Yeah. There's some really, really, really clever writing and really clever filmmaking happening here with this film that I really appreciated.
Yeah.
Though there were also times, I have to say, where like it got so implausible that I was like, what? What is happening? And then they'd pull me back in with great writing and filmmaking, and I'd be like, okay, I'm back.
Yeah.
It is kind of a wacky film. It's not some of the other stuff I've seen Mamet do or watched Mamet from Mamet has been a bit more straightforward.
Oh yeah, and more serious too. Yeah.
And more serious, more true to life in a way. This still has this dialogue where they're just talking over each other, and but yeah, it's kind of almost I don't know how to put it. It's a very unique movie. It's good.
Yeah.
But it's very unique. It takes some getting used to for a second.
I've seen
watched
this.
that so many times.
I can't believe this is a movie I've seen. I was like, oh, I know this. Yeah, I saw this on TV a while back. It is shot very well.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
cool. It's a fun movie.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a good like comedy.
There's a great one of my favorite moments in the film is when they're talking about how they got to get rid of the old mill. They got to get rid of the old mill from the script. And then the
Yes.
next shot is cuts to the cover page of the script as someone opens it up, and the movie is called The Old Mill.
That's great.
That's just a good gag. Anyway.
Yeah, it's such a great movie. It's one of those that I need to rewatch. It's been so many years since I've seen that, but I do like to at least promote people watching it because it is
The
fun.
cast is very 2000.
Oh,
I mean,
sure. Yes,
yeah.
100%. Very, very 2000. Exactly. 100%. Jacob,
Yeah.
your extra, sir.
Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna take Brian's advice. I'm gonna music extra.
Oh, okay.
This weekend we went down to first we went down to the Colorado Springs Air Show and we saw the Blue Angels and some F-22s. That was pretty cool.
Nice.
But then that night we got to see Cody Johnson in concert, which was awesome in Denver
Yeah.
at Fiddler's Green. And
Ted, what's up, buddy?
If you're not familiar with Cody Johnson, if you like country music, real country music, he definitely plays it, and he puts on a great live show. We're actually seeing him again on September 6th in Rapid City. We're traveling up there for that.
Wow.
But on the way down to the air show and on the way down to Denver Friday night, we listened to Post Malone's new country album.
Posty.
Yes. Oh, also, I voted today. Today's our
I saw your sticker.
I voted. So that's another extra.
You
wow.
already voted
Whoa.
for
You
the
just got a double
presidential
extra?
election in November.
Oh,
That's amazing.
Primaries for state.
Yeah. Right on.
But
late primary.
Post Malone, since he's been interested in country music, he's been one of the few non-country people that I've been like, I am gonna give this a chance because he's going about it the right way. He is showing respect to the genre and the people that have come in the past, and he's a big fan of 90s country, which in my opinion is the peak of country music. And
I would agree.
Even before he was like doing the albums, when he was playing when he would play country songs, he would play 90s covers, and he did that whole Joe Diffie thing at the ACMs last year, whenever that was. So I was pretty excited for this album. I didn't really, going into it, I would kind of wish that it wasn't as star-studded an album as it is, where just about every single song on his album proper has somebody on it. Tim McGraw, Hank Jr., Morgan Wallen, Blake Shelton, Dolly Parton, Brad Paisley, Luke Combs, Lenny Wilson, Will Ernest, Sarah Farrell, Luke Combs again, Chris Stapleton, Hardy, Billy Strings. Like, that's a lot.
That's how you
but
do.
I see what you mean about paying reverence, and
yeah. So like,
he's just
like he's picked good enough people. I like a lot of these, like Hank Jr., obviously legend. Tim McGraw, his older stuff is awesome. He kind of sucks now. He's wears jeans that you would think are painted on. Morgan Wallen, good from time to time. Brad Paisley had a good kind of start to his career as well. So like, I like what he's doing. I liked a lot of these songs. His best part of this album is his long bed edition, because he released a deluxe edition late Friday night, and I think it was like 6 additional songs, and they were fantastic. It was just him, and they were really, really country.
Way better, Ted. Way better.
Yes, way better. And like, he's actually like playing music, and like, he's still bringing the posty type of feel to it. He played the Grand Ole Opry this weekend as well, and he did a country rendition of Sunflower, which was amazing. If you have not heard it, go find it, because it's really good. They put some fiddle in there, and there's a whole fiddle solo in the middle of the song. I really want him to release that as a single.
That'll probably, you can probably find that on
very good. It's on YouTube. I'll put a link in the Discord.
That's awesome. Very cool.
That's how I
I have a country music adjacent extra that I missed. The Keith Urban pop up like 5 minutes from my house.
Oh yeah, I tried to tag you on that.
I was out of town. I was out of town, and I totally would have just driven over there to see that madness.
That Buc-ee's, I saw like overhead shots of it. There were so many people at that Buc-ee's. That was insane, the amount of people that were there.
Yeah. Apparently he had gone there a few weeks ago, and then he's like, I got to come back and do something. So
Right, it's like, how do you decide to do a Bucky's parking lot concert?
that's
It's so
genius.
so random. I get he must have a new album coming out or something. I mean,
Hey, Keith Urban. That's a guy. Him and Nicole Kidman actually both super Catholic.
oh really?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
they
guess
are,
after
like,
Nicole
Every
left,
time they're in Nashville, people see them at the cathedral there.
Oh, that's cool. I
Mhm.
did
Wow.
not know that. Did not know that about them at all. That's
I
very
didn't
well,
interesting.
John-
I guess after Tom Cruise experience, she
Yeah.
swung to Catholicism. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, you got to go
As you
the
would.
complete other direction. That's interesting because I always hear about, like, Brad Paisley and Kimberly Williams Paisley. They're pretty like faith heavy with their stuff. So that's interesting. I like that. That's cool
Yeah,
to
and I
hear.
mean, just the way Keith Urban dresses, you wouldn't think that, like, I don't know, and like just how he acts, like you wouldn't think like religious out of him, and so
Yeah,
he doesn't really have any songs about it, but yeah,
that's cool. That's interesting. Well, my extra, I noticed that Bill Lawrence had a new show, and he's of Scrubs fame, of Ted Lasso fame. He is producing a new show called Bad Monkey for Apple TV Plus, and it had my guy Vince Vaughn in it. And I am a Vince Vaughn fan. I've always been a Vince Vaughn fan, even when he was doing some darker stuff like
dragged
Cell
across
Block.
Tomahawk or whatever.
Yeah,
99.
well, Cell Block 99.
Is
He
that
did
what
that
it
one.
was? Yeah.
But this one's this is more of the comedic version of Vince Vaughn. I'll just read like the description of the show. He plays a detective turned restaurant inspector in southern Florida, and he's pulled into the world of greed and corruption after a tourist finds a severed arm while fishing. And yes, there is a monkey in the show as well. So it's like one of those fast, like Vince Vaughn doing his fast talking thing and being his witty. Just the writing's really good. It's really funny. It's set in southern Florida, and so you have just sort of like this feel about it, like this Miami feel, Key West type feel about it that makes it interesting. Just the setting of the show. I'm really enjoying it. They put the first 2 episodes, as Apple TV usually does. They put the first 2 episodes out already, and then weekly they'll have a new episode. But if you're a Vince Vaughn fan of old, this is a show to watch because he's sort of back to his fast talking, witty, comedic self.
See, with the monkey, I thought you were going to talk about Chimp Crazy. The new,
Don't know what that is.
It's basically the new Tiger King.
Oh no,
it's called Chimp Crazy. Yeah.
Is that on Netflix? I'm guessing.
HBO.
Oh, HBO. Okay.
So it's this crazy lady who like rescues chimps and I need to watch it because we loved Tiger King. It was just
yeah. Well, that was like the perfect COVID show
Mhm.
because everybody watched that when it was released because everybody was stuck at home, and it became like a phenomenon. And when they did like follow-ups, it was never as good. But that first series was awesome.
Tiger King went to Laramie High School over in Laramie, Wyoming. Yeah, he's like on one of their placards, like a class of whatever year.
Should we be proud of that? I don't know.
Tracy's all in on the chimp thing. That's awesome.
He got no.
I was gonna say, speaking of Vince Vaughn and dark movies, when you brought it up, I was like, when is S. Craig Zahler gonna release another movie?
Yeah.
Pre-production, but it's called The Bookie and the Bruiser. Follows 2 World War II veterans, Rivner, a Jewish man, and Boscolo, an Italian-American, as they struggle to readjust to life after returning from war, no longer fitting into their previous existence, starring Vince Vaughn and Adrian Brody.
Oh, I like
By the way, Zahler, however you say his name, the reason why he hasn't put out a movie in a while is because his production company, like the one that he was working with, went under. So the guy who was running it was accused of like sexual assault, I think. Anyway.
So.
And then
I know what you're
he also, I remember this now. He's also writing an upcoming Ridley Scott movie, Wraiths of the Broken Land.
Oh,
father attempts to rescue his daughters from a brothel with the help of his 2 sons and their outlaw gang. Nothing known about that one.
Wraith.
Sounds really
Drew Goddard, also a writer on it.
Oh, I like Drew Goddard. That's cool. All right, are we ready for this in-depth like really think about. I'm going to start with Garrison because
Okay.
he keeps track of this stuff, and
Mm.
he'll have a good opinion about this. Is being a box office draw
Oh,
a prerequisite to being a movie star? I want you to think about that. Like, would you call somebody like Kate Blanchett a movie star?
Oh, I see where you're going.
I guess it depends on why people are going to those movies.
Okay. Okay.
And so let's take Timothy Chalamet, for example. His last
Let's
two
take him.
movies,
Yeah.
gangbusters at the box office.
Right.
But were people going to see it because it was Timothy Chalamet, or were they going to see it because it was a good Wonka movie and a very good conclusion to Dune?
Okay.
I think it's a good thing to have. You
Yeah.
need a box office draw to be a movie star, but doesn't just because you have had a good string of box office draws does not make you a movie star. And there are, to Ted's point, there are not really movie stars anymore, quote unquote, because studios. That's also the studio's fault. The studios have shifted to being IP
Yeah.
focused and driven,
Yeah.
and so the thing that sells now is IP. It's there are some things that actors have done that's their fault in some senses, but
That's fair.
really it's there's a lot of different reasons why the movie star is not really much of a thing anymore, and that's because we've shifted to brands being the thing. And that can be a dangerous thing too, because if a brand gets negatively affected by a movie that came before, you know, it can have negative repercussions for films down the line. I think you saw that with the Marvels last year. But whereas Deadpool and Wolverine hitting $1 billion this year, was able to kind of sidestep some of that stuff by bringing back characters that you knew and loved.
Yeah.
But I think the Marvels was kind of a culmination of a lot of different things for the MCU, not just that film itself necessarily, or even the stars in it itself. Even though there is sure plenty of dislike online for Brie Larson.
So what is your
Yeah.
final answer then? Yes or no?
What was the? Do you have the
Is
exact
being
question?
is being a box office draw a prerequisite to being a movie star?
So it would have to be ultimately, but it does not guarantee. But just because you are in a bunch of things that draw money does not make you a movie star.
Jacob, thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think largely I agree with Garrison, but I also think it's in this era and age of the internet and social media being the main driver of popular opinion. I think if maybe your movies don't do gangbusters every time doesn't mean that you're not a movie star. I do agree that there's very few movie stars left. I think that, like, obviously Tom Cruise still exists, so he would
Right.
be a movie star. He's kind of the last one of that past era. I do believe that Glenn Powell could be if the studios and himself
Maybe.
make the right moves.
There's some proof in the pudding there, though. I mean, if you think about the 3 big films he's been in have done
Yeah.
well. So maybe there's something to Glenn Powell.
Yeah, and like
One of which
sure,
he was under the wing of
Tom Cruise,
Tom.
right? And so like, that
Sure.
can be how it works as well, because right, Tom Cruise was under the wing of some pretty big movie stars in
Yeah,
his
absolutely.
There's a Paul Newman or
Color of Money. Yep.
Jack Nicholson, or you're right. I mean,
so I think it's still possible, and I think that if they have a good enough social media game and not like a great person to follow on Twitter or something like that, but just have the je ne sais quoi, I suppose. I think that can make them a movie star without necessarily having to be a box office draw right now. I think long term, that is going to be something that they will have to do because that's how the studios make their money. But I don't know if they can be how the studios put out movies now.
Yeah. Brian.
I was thinking about '70s movie stars like
Mhm.
Marlon Brando, or '60s and '70s, even earlier
Yeah.
than that. But
Yeah.
like Dustin Hoffman, just the classic
Pacino. Yeah.
Pacino movie stars who just shone on the screen. They were the brightest they could be on the screen, no matter what they were in.
Mhm.
So like when I think about those movies, but when I think about like a Harrison Ford, would you go see a movie just because Harrison Ford was in it, or
Mhm.
like Garrison says, it, am I interested in the movie? Right? There's a weird balance there, Michael. That's
There
a
was
really
a
hard.
time for
Hmm.
sure, like with
Yo,
Harrison
yeah,
Ford.
yeah,
Like
for
it didn't
sure.
matter. Like I'd go see what it was, that Fireproof or Firestorm
Yeah,
or whatever
Hollywood
that
Homicide.
Hollywood. Like
Right,
there was certainly a time. He just isn't in enough. I mean, I
right.
think now I think now that there's too much content in
I,
too many different places now.
I was
So
about
like
to say that.
you're being pulled in a bunch of different
Mhm.
directions.
Right.
So
Like Marlon Brando would make a movie once every 4 years or whatever it is, right?
something yeah, exactly.
Maybe even more frequent than that. But now it's just like this constant fire hose of mediocrity,
Right.
in some cases. So,
No,
um,
you're right.
yeah. So
And also studios have changed a lot too. I mean,
Mhm.
back in the day, I mean, Warner Brothers or whomever would release 40 movies in a year. And now they're not even close to that anymore.
Mm.
And so it's just kind of they pick and choose. And to Garrison's point, it's generally IP. They generally don't do much more than IP anymore as far as
Well,
big theatrical releases.
yeah, well, and the reason for that, not to go too off topic, is
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
makes money. When those things are
sure,
good, they make money,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so they don't want to take risks
Mm.
doing original films
Hmm.
because those things aren't guaranteed to make money.
So
And I,
And so it's just a I know it's not great for
yeah,
creativity necessarily, but
but
it's
are
just
the
a
people
business
who are
decision.
in blockbusters movie
right,
stars like Keanu Reeves, or like
yeah.
Um,
is he a movie
I
star?
think Reeves is of a generation where, people do still at
That's
least
interesting.
go like, I want to go see John Wick with Keanu Reeves.
Right.
I don't think people are going to go see Ballerina.
Right.
Right,
Um, that they're
right.
not going to go, oh, I'm going to go see the John Wick spinoff because I love that universe right
Mm.
now. I mean, if that movie's great, then people will go, well, I love this universe. I'll check out more. But
This is a
right
good
now,
point
it's
from Matt
John Wick.
also, because I think think about Interstellar, or not Interstellar, but think about Oppenheimer,
Well,
for example.
well,
Mhm.
Nolan, people went to see that movie because of Nolan.
yeah. So Nolan,
Yeah.
no, Nolan, Interstellar, Dunkirk,
Yeah, all his
Tenet
films. Yeah,
was COVID, but
yeah, that
then
was a weird situation.
Oppenheimer largely built off the back. I mean, the hype and the reason why it even got paired up with Barbie was because it was a Nolan film. It was because people
Right,
went, "Oh, it's Nolan's
right.
next film up
Mhm.
against Barbie."
Hmm.
At the time, that was kind of the Barbenheimer joke, was that it was an art house film with this IP film, but still directed by Greta Gerwig, obviously, and written by her and Noah Baumbach, kind of art housey people. If you look into
Yeah.
history as well, but
And you can also put there are unfortunately there are some holes that you can put into that theory because Spielberg, like Fablemans, didn't really do well box office wise.
yeah,
Um,
but
and neither
I
did
think
West
that
Side Story, really. I mean, it got nominated for Best Picture, but it did not do well in the box office. I
I
mean,
think that was more. Um, yeah, I mean that's tough. I just think people don't care about Spielberg as much as they
as
used to.
much as they,
Right.
yeah,
But in the '80s, if his name was on the movie, we were there,
totally,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Regardless of the relative unknowns who
Now,
might have been in the movie.
I think like with his next movie, it being like a sci-fi genre, I
it's a
think that is going to
blockbuster.
draw. That's going
Yeah.
to be a
But
draw. Yeah.
is that because of us Gen Xers and his legacy of his impact on our lives?
Well, I think everybody. I think like
Yeah.
Gen Z. I think anybody
Yeah.
goes to see a sci-fi Spielberg film. I mean, that's just
Look,
kind of
kids
like,
my
yeah,
age know Spielberg, but
yeah,
they don't necessarily know his next movie is The Fablemans. But the difference
right,
is The Fablemans didn't get a massive marketing push because it's a smaller drama film about his life, basically.
Mhm.
It
yeah,
was an awards play more than anything. Um, uh, West Side Story did get more of a marketing push and absolutely bombed. it was also unfortunately the week before No Way Home came out, and in a
Mhm.
time when people were very, very selective about going to the theaters, and
Mhm.
most people probably in that moment decided, I'm going to go see Spider-Man if they knew about West Side Story.
Yeah.
With this UFO movie, I think that's going to get a much bigger push. It's going to be a blockbuster type movie. It's going to be
Mhm.
starring some bigger names. I'm forgetting the male lead right now, but they've got the female lead out for Scarlett Johansson.
Is this the dish?
So
The Dish.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
Emily Blunt,
the
Colin
male,
Firth.
yeah, Colin
And
Firth. Colin Firth. Yep, that's the one he's
He's
put out.
he's eyeing it. Did
Yep,
he
yep.
officially?
They're
He
both in
officially.
talks. They're both
Yeah,
in
they're both in
talks.
talks. Yeah.
So,
and I'm
um,
so excited for Megapolis, partially because
Megalodon.
it's a
Really?
sci-fi, and because it's Francis Ford Coppola. Oh yeah,
Well,
I,
yeah. I mean that
Well,
name.
the problem with Coppola right now
Yeah,
that he has is that if you look at his recent filmography, it's just stinker after
it's
stinker,
not great.
really.
Twixt, I think, was one of them.
Also,
Yeah, they just
you
put
can
out a
also
director's cut of
I
that.
like
you
Twix
can
candy
say that
bars.
about
Come on.
Spielberg too a little bit. I mean, like not as bad of movies as Coppola's, but like comparatively, like The
Yeah.
Fablemans, I enjoyed it a lot. West Side Story was a fine movie. Ready Player One, fine.
Yeah.
The BFG, I never saw it. Like, but you just keep going down. Bridge of Spies, Lincoln, War Horse, Adventures of 1010,
Hmm.
Eunuch, even War of the Worlds. Like, War of the Worlds is probably the end of his like kind of just crazy run.
Yeah, he had a good run for a while. I mean, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's been a minute. Like I mean, I guess my thought on it. I mean, I don't know that there is really a movie star anymore either, like the same as they used to be. Um, like I would say Kate Blanchett is a movie star, but it also matters what movie she's in. She's
Yeah.
not going to be the draw ever. Like I don't know if a lot of people went to see Tar, but if you see that movie, you're like, that is a movie star. I mean, she commands the screen in pretty much everything that she's in, but she's not a box office draw. But I would still personally call her a movie star, but she's not really a box office draw. So I don't know. I
What do
mean,
you think about this non-factual theory with no research into it? But I feel like movies take so long to make now
yes,
that actors and actresses are able to be in less movies a year, right? And I feel like in the past, in like the 60s through and even way before that too, like the early days of Hollywood,
well,
like
the studio system,
yeah,
yeah,
the studio system where actors were signed to contracts with the studio, they were pumping out movies nonstop. That
right,
obviously went down
Right.
a bit, but they were still like an actor could be in 4 movies a year. And
hmm,
now it's like, oh, we get like one Timothy Chalamet movie or one
yeah.
two. Like, so could that be part of the decline? The reason for the decline in movie stars is that like they're just not out there as much.
Well, I think that goes back to IP films as
Mhm.
well. When you're making those, I mean, that's like a 5 to 6 month shoot for
Mhm.
Yeah,
those films, and then you got to account for reshoots and stuff like that. Whereas a lot of
yeah. This is
films,
a good point from Ted. I mean,
and
there's no mystery
especially,
anymore.
well, sure,
Yeah,
but also especially those IP films, they go into production and they're constantly rewriting them. They're
hmm,
constantly doing revisions and rewrites on set. So back in the day when you were making a film, usually you went in with a clear vision of what you were going to do. And so you were able to get, especially a guy like Spielberg, always came in under budget and under the allotted days he was supposed to do it.
yeah.
And so that could help out an actor's schedule as well, obviously. But yeah, I mean it's an interesting point. I think it kind of all ties back in though with what the studios are trying to do nowadays versus what they used to do.
And what about TV's
Um,
impact on it with the expanse
I,
of
Yeah.
the prestige television and TV no longer
absolutely.
being looked as a down step in their
Well,
career?
see,
Yeah,
and I think Glenn Powell's playing it right because he's actually working on a TV show right now. So,
yeah.
I mean, he's like he's bouncing back and forth, which I think you have to do now.
Yeah, it's super
Problem,
blurry. Yeah, right. The
I was gonna
line
say
between TV and movies. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
used to
there
be a
really
difference
isn't one
between
anymore.
TV
Yeah.
star and movie star,
Hmm.
for sure. And movie stars wouldn't go down.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that was an insult. back in the
I was
day.
thinking, I was trying to think of like the first big show. I think it was FX. Glenn Close was in a TV show or something randomly on FX. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting that you've got like this prestigious actress who has come to an FX show. I think it was FX. It was like a courtroom drama of some type. I can't really remember the show, but now it happens all the time. It's
Yeah,
constant.
So,
Obviously,
what was
it was all.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Brian. You can go.
What was the show on HBO a couple years ago where it was like the 3 women who were all involved in like a murder thing? It was like,
Oh yeah, that had like Nicole Kidman, Reese
Yeah.
Witherspoon.
Yeah,
like,
Big Little Eyes.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to kind of
What's
bring
up,
up
Earl?
with HBO. Hello, Earl. Good to see you in the comments.
Yeah, randomly.
No, but HBO is really the start of that TV.
Yeah,
Changing the landscape thing, right?
prestige
With
TV.
Sopranos, really kind of changing how people viewed what TV could be. And I just saw a trailer for a documentary about the making of The Sopranos with
Melissa, what's up?
With David Chase. So I'm looking forward to watching it, definitely.
Yeah.
I think, and this is a completely different discussion, but I think Hollywood has kind of lost the plot for big budget television stuff.
Mhm.
And that's the, I mean, like, where we have to make these prestige TV shows. So they have to be 180, $200 million, $220 million, sometimes up to closer to 300. You can get sometimes down in the lower 100s. What I'm saying is the shows like The Wire, The Sopranos, those were not big spectacle FX heavy
They didn't
shows.
cost that much.
They were about the characters. It was about your journey with these people as you go along this expansive show. But ever since, I guess I have to imagine it was Game of Thrones that really, and then Stranger Things, just kind of kicking each other, up and up with the episode budgets.
Yeah.
That now everyone's like,
right, Earl?
we've got to
Exactly.
get people to come on board, and absolutely, I love Shogun season 1. To get and the great thing about Shogun season 1, it's not all spectacle, by the way. It's a lot of, it's a lot of conversations and character building. But to win this streaming arms race, they're all spending $200 million on these shows to try to go, look at this big thing we've got. But that's not, it's not sustainable as we see economically, and that's the reason why they're cutting back a bunch on these shows. But B, they're not making good television shows either. I mean, it's there can be really cool big spectacle TV shows. There's a place for that, and I love that stuff, especially when done well. But I think we also need to get back to smaller budget. And again, this is a kind of a different conversation, but
we need
to get back to smaller budget character work, and that's where also movie stars start to shine. Is when you get back to that smaller, character focus.
Well, and every executive now is coming to the realization of everything that you just said. I mean, Iger has basically said we've got to pull back. Apple has said we've got to pull back. I mean, that a $330 million movie with the Russos, it's ridiculous. Electric State. That is ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I mean that's perfectly fine for Avengers, but for a non-Avengers film, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Isn't that Apple or is that Prime? I can't remember which one that
Netflix.
is.
So I think
Electric State is Netflix?
Yes, Millie Bobby Brown and
I didn't realize that.
Chris Pratt.
Wow.
I didn't know.
So I just saw, speaking of this week, that the new Battlestar Galactica reboot was canceled.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm like, obviously they want
Peacock doesn't have anything going for it except for the EPL. That's
about
it.
Yeah. So and the Olympics.
Yeah.
So
Olympics, NFL playoffs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's like they don't have the money for it, or it's not not good enough of a show to do this. Who knows?
Well, a show like BSG would be probably a $200 million show, and so they don't want to afford that because the returns are not there. The subscribers are not there. I mean, look at The Acolyte. It's a $180 million show, and it doesn't look like it. That's another problem.
Peacock lost $2.7 billion in last fiscal year. Disney lost 1.7 billion. These are all going to be very reduced. I'm very excited to see the profit loss coming out of this year because it's going to be bad in terms of what we would think the numbers are, but it's going to be much less than 1.7 billion. And then these shows, but the problem is because of the slowdown, they're going to have to figure out the way of actually producing new shows to keep people interested.
Well, and that's why the bundle's happening. That's why all the bundles.
That's why the bundles are happening. And also, I think you're going to have a return to smaller shows. You know, they're going to up marketing budgets for those kinds of things, but smaller focused shows, not as big a spectacle. The spectacle can still be there, but not every show needs to be the spectacle.
Right.
Not every show needs a bunch of CGI. You know, House of Dragon's fine. It's your big premiere show. But you still need and I haven't watched this, but I assume there's not a ton of CG work in Succession. You know, there's not it's not a super high budget show. Barry is not a super high budget show. You know, these kinds of things you need.
Yeah, they generally have in the past, Ted, but I think they're trying to be more transparent lately with.
Well, see, Ted, they hide. So here's what. So Hollywood does not hide the fact that they're losing money on streaming because they can't really hide that money ultimately. The only ones that actually are actively hiding it are Apple and Amazon right now. They're the only ones not reporting anything. And Deadline even published numbers saying that Apple lost 20 billion to this point. So
which is why they're like, we're pulling back.
I mean, the numbers exist. They're out there. What they actually will do, what Hollywood really will do, is hide whether or not a box office. Well, box office numbers are real, but they'll tell you that a movie that made $1 billion didn't make a profit, so they don't have to pay actors residuals. That's what Hollywood really hides. Fun fact: Return of the Jedi made $30 million, or it would cost $30 million. It made $300 million worldwide in the 80s, which is fantastic. And David Prowse is told that it didn't make a profit, so he couldn't get residuals his entire life.
No wonder he was so bitter about everything.
So Michael, CNN is referring to this as the great rebundling, right? So like all the bundling. So can we talk about that for a second? It's like
there's like three different ones. I mean, there's like I know the only one that's not a part of one I think is Apple and Amazon, right? They choose not to be a part of these bundles. I think that there's a Peacock, Paramount, and Max. Is that what the three are?
No, it's Hulu, Disney, and Max.
Hulu, Disney, and Max.
Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery announced a plan to jointly offer
Peacock's
Hulu,
in one too, though.
And Max.
Yeah, it was Peacock but it was Peacock and Netflix for Comcast.
Right, that's
users.
What it was.
So you have to have Comcast
specific that's what it was. But still, they're bundling stuff, though. I mean, because they know they've got to. I mean, Peacock especially. I can't believe Peacock still exists.
Yeah.
Pull up Ted's comment that said the real numbers are even worse.
Oh, the real numbers are even worse.
Okay. So there are definitely cases where that can be true. I will say for streaming last year, I'm going to argue that Disney's number was made to look worse ultimately due to all the box office failures. I think they dumped some of that, some of the issues onto the streaming service. I think they kind of dumped some of their negative profits onto the streaming service last year budget, which made it go down to negative 1.7 billion. But also it lost easily $1 billion itself anyway.
So I think ultimately we decided there's no such thing as movie stars anymore.
Yeah, I mean, movie stars are dead.
There's just it just doesn't matter anymore, really. I mean, now that's not to say that I'm not excited. Like if a new Florence Pugh movie is coming out, that's not an IP. Like
so that's the thing is, to movie nerds and to Uber nerds, we're not Q Public.
Right. Yeah.
We pay attention to rising stars and actors and actresses we love. We're going to go see those movies. It's Q Public, it's general public, Joe Public, whatever, that don't know these people that well.
And like Roth, this was an interesting thing that I think happened this year. General population doesn't care about an actor's baggage if it's an IP. Bad Boys, for example.
Oh yeah.
That movie did awesome. Nobody cared about anything Will Smith did 2 years ago.
And it was great.
Yeah. And also,
Right? I mean,
I still maintain that what Will Smith did, like, people overreacted a little bit to it. It was crazy, but like,
I
it's
mean,
not like he killed somebody. Like it was
no,
crazy, but like,
I think
yeah.
some people have overreacted to it.
Steve
I
Palpatine.
I was mad in the moment only because I was like, man, why do you make that moment about yourself?
Right,
Of all times. It's just so it's a very selfish thing and a self-centered thing to do, which is very Hollywood. So that's not surprising.
Ted,
but-
I like Ted being the conspiracy theorist here that the whole thing was a setup. I think that probably Chris Rock would disagree. But
yeah, I don't agree only because the Academy doesn't ban you for the amount of years they banned him for.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
he would not. That's not something he would put up with.
But also, it's funny to me that IP absolves all of that. Like, basically, Will Smith is back where he was before the slap, as far as if he's in a movie that is a sequel or IP or anything, he'll be back.
Yeah, for sure. And like, also, it's crazy the country's short-term memory.
Oh, sure.
Well, that's
that's obvious.
Just news moves so fast that like nobody
right.
remembers that. Nobody remembers Trump got shot. Like,
well,
right, exactly.
So nobody's gonna remember a slap.
Yeah. Exactly.
Have you seen Bad Boys 4?
I haven't seen any of the Bad Boys.
Oh, really?
Well, there is a reference to the slap in the film.
Yeah.
And it got a huge laugh at my screening, so people remember.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't care.
But they don't care is maybe what more.
Yeah.
They don't care.
So I think Ted had a comment earlier also about the very closeness we feel with movie stars, or we know them more.
Oh yeah. I
than we
mean,
did
there's
before.
there's no mystery to them anymore. Well, I think there's still a little bit of mystery to the ones that want there to be mystery. Like,
I like that.
Like
That's
Glenn
good.
Powell, I think his real life, he keeps very like, away from the public eye with his real life stuff. Whereas his co-star Sydney Sweeney does not at all.
My God.
And it almost like, and that's what you're saying. Like, if I don't like them personally, it's much harder to disconnect that from their performance. And I think it's almost distasteful. It's like I don't.
Well, for
want
some
to
people,
like them.
like I've never.
I guess I've spent my entire life separating the art from the artist.
For the most part, I do as well. I mean, there's certain
unless they're
people,
like a murderer or a rapist, I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I mean. Like, so for some people we can disconnect that, and some people it's like, oh, I don't know if I can watch this because so and so did XYZ on Twitter last week. So it's like.
I think it depends on how egregious it is. Like,
and like for example, the slap's not a big deal to anybody anymore.
Right. But like, there was a time like, well, this isn't a great example because he's not doing anything. But like, if Mark Hamill was still doing stuff like acting and stuff, I'd be like, I'm going to go see Mark Hamill stuff because I want to support Luke Skywalker. Not anymore. He's a moron on Twitter. So like,
he is a moron on Twitter.
Right.
So I'm not going to support him. And so like, I do think that does partially. But again, to Gen Pop, I don't know if like that type of stuff. They don't.
Less than 1% of the population's on X. I mean, it's exactly. I wish I could post that, Steve, because part of that is actually a good point. But then you threw it all away, and I can't post it. I can't post it at all. People will have to go back and see if they can figure out. Yeah, I mean, Tracy, I think like we kind of talked about it a little bit, Tracy. I think like in some cases you can, but in some cases you probably shouldn't. I don't know. It's just
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, and I know that there's become a reckoning with some of this stuff in the last 20 years, but I mean, as of 5 to 10 years ago, they were still teaching birth of.
I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know. I don't listen to those stations on Sirius. I've got Sirius, but I'm usually I don't know 80s on 8, so I don't know.
Yeah,
if
I heard like
They were
like
still,
Kanye. I mean, come on.
well, yeah,
yeah,
he's done a lot
they
of
were
weird
still
stuff.
showing Birth of a Nation in film classes,
Right,
which look,
right.
it's a racist film, but
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it was more about, the things that it helped develop and actually kind of revolutionized at the time in the
Mhm.
industry. It's not really about that
Yeah.
stuff. That's where you can separate the art from the artist. You don't have to enjoy it. You can just go, this is a thing. This is what it did. Roman Polanski.
Mm.
Yeah, Polanski's one that everybody always, and Woody Allen.
Polanski's
Polanski and Woody Allen,
a
you can put like,
visionary filmmaker, a awful human being.
For
Right.
sure.
But and like I think to me, like I usually treat it as a sliding scale of like how good are they at their art compared to like the type of person they are. It's just like in like sports. Like any big
Sure.
sports guy who's like, if he's like an absolute like moron off the field, but he's incredible, he's going to be on the team and he's going to have a job for as long as he's incredible. Once he's
Right.
not, it starts being a problem.
Yep,
He's not going to have a team anymore. And
that's
so it's just,
exactly
I
right.
treat it the same for actors or musicians where like,
Yeah.
if they're making good music, I will probably still listen to it depending on what they did.
Vegas don't care when you're putting that prop bet on. They don't care what you're doing. I mean,
And neither do the owners of the NFL teams that are employing
yeah.
some of these, like
100%. You're right.
crazy bad people.
Yeah.
I think it's also weird, like folks like you, McGregor, defending Polanski. Like it's just it's undefendable, right? And
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he
find that
raped a
frustrating.
13-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really Ted. Amen, Ted. That's right.
Holy what now?
Well, hey,
I
do
didn't
I have
read-
a
I didn't see
movie
it.
for you?
Yeah, there's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood kind of
Sort
Oh,
of.
yeah.
It's not
a
Polanski,
version
but,
of it's not exactly. Well, I said we were only going to go 30 minutes and we went 51, but we'll figure this out. It was
Content for the people.
it was a good question to ask. I mean, and if you're watching this later on, throw your answer in the comments. I mean, is being a box office draw a prerequisite to being a movie star? Just throw that in comments if you're watching this later. We'll have another question, probably movie related, and then I'll probably let these guys come up with a question. I mean, because we're going to be doing this until Agatha and Penguin come out, so we've got a couple weeks here. Espo off the grid for the most part, but he can be found, and this is how I'm going to talk about the Deucecast, because he can be found in the Deucecast, which is our Discord server. All you have to do is email me at thedeucecast@gmail.com. I can throw you into the Discord where we have all kinds of fun conversations about movies, TV, sports, all kinds. We're gearing up for fantasy football, man. I'm excited for it. Did Bubba ever email you?
Yes,
Yep.
yep,
Okay, good.
We've got a
Yes.
full league, so I'll put a
We've
message.
got a full league. I'm excited.
Hey, can non-participants watch the league? Like, will you guys post?
What do you mean by
I don't know what that
that?
means.
I don't know what that means.
I don't
I
know
know
if you
nothing.
what that means.
I know nothing about American football, but I would like to watch the carnage and talk to everyone.
Maybe we'll figure that out somehow, Jacob. I don't know, like put the results in.
Screenshots of the score.
Yeah,
I'm
like
sure,
the results.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
could link to it and non-participants can look at
Wow.
our box scores.
This is some lingo right here. The extra is fresh, no cap.
Oh, is that what that
Girls
says?
got the Riz.
Fresh, no cap.
Oh, I see.
Fresh,
Oh.
no cap. Exactly. Garrison, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at grifen3, GRYFUN 3. You can find me on Letterboxd at grifen, GRYFUN. That's about it.
Right on.
That's,
And the Deucecast, of course.
yeah.
Hang out. Roth, I personally loved the episode for Last of the Mohicans. I thought it was an amazing episode of Good Day for a Movie podcast. I freaking love that movie so much.
Mhm.
When you played just the little snippet, or I guess you were playing the trailer, and the little snippet of the score came on, it immediately made me want to watch that movie because that is such a good score. What is next for Good Day for a Movie podcast?
Yes, 12 Monkeys is next. Little Bruce Willis action.
So long since I've seen that.
Never seen it. I'm very excited. It was between that and David and Bathsheba.
I'm really
I'm glad.
not that David and Bathsheba won't be a bad move, but I'm glad you guys did 12 Monkeys.
Yeah, I am too. it was the right choice with our Game of Connections. Madeline Stowe also starring in that one, and hopefully we get some. I'm excited for this movie and the connections that can be made from it as well, because Brad Pitt. Maybe some good Brad Pitt movies coming up as well, or whatever it may be, or maybe some more craziness with Terry Gilliam. But yeah, that's a good day for a movie podcast. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd Roth from Wyoming on the Deucecast as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I'm at the Michael Nip on X, and I'm on Instagram, but I don't really use it. The Deucecast as well on X and Facebook. Check us out every Wednesday for the podcast. This coming Wednesday, we have got a very special episode featuring one Scott Rifen, talking about our top 10 directors of all time. I am excited.
Favorite directors.
Yeah, favorite. Yeah, more favorite. Not like what are the best directors, more like favorite directors. Because there's a director that Scott mentions as his number 2. Come on.
Yeah. How are you still objecting to it?
Come on now. I had to like suddenly and abruptly leave that episode because my wife was not feeling well. And
But you were happy.
But I was happy that I had to leave because his number 2 is just, it's ridiculous.
I'm excited to hear this now.
Yeah, I know. That's called a setup. That's called a teaser.
Yes.
For the episode.
Directed 12 Monkeys again.
You guys started giving him crap for his 2, and I almost interjected. I was almost like, guys, it's his favorite.
That's true. It's his list. It's his right. I don't know why we were like trying to give him a hard time about it, but it just happened. Look, it was organic. It just happened. I couldn't help it. But that, like I said, that releases the Deucecast movie show releases every Wednesday. We are almost done with our summer movie list. I think we've hopefully, crossing fingers, got Jennifer Kaufman coming on to do the final episode before Earl, Dave, and myself do our top 10 favorite films of all time at some point in September. It's not going to be right away, but at some point in September, we're going to do that. I think we're going to have a guest host for a couple of weeks in a row in September because Dr. Earl is going to be overseas. I won't say where. I won't say where, but he's not going to be around. It's going to be overseas for a little bit.
Traveling Dr. Earl. He really is
Doctors Without Borders. Exactly.
It's like Uncle Traveling Matt from the Muppet Show. Anyway.
Oh yeah, the Muppet. Yes, I know what you're talking about. So thank you guys. Gosh, the chat was on fire this week. Steve Palpatine, always fun to see you in the chat.
Thanks, Rhett.
Earl, yeah, thanks, Red. Earl Salser hanging out. Oops, I said his name out loud, but he's in the chat, so whatever. Ted hanging out. Tracy hanging out. We even had some Matt Mink hanging out. And
Melissa.
That's right. Melissa. How can I forget Melissa? Who? I said Tracy's.
You did?
Yeah, I said Tracy's name. Yeah, I did. I thought you said Craig. I was like, no, he wasn't in the chat.
No.
But anyways, we will be back next week. Extra Roundtable 2. Speaking of IP, we're going to be back. Extra Roundtable 2 next Tuesday night, live in color. Thank you guys again. Everyone have a great night. Go watch some TV, listen to some music, watch a movie, and let us know in the comments what you're watching right now. Talk to y'all later.